Hello everyone and welcome back to Streets of Rage for round 5, the most infamous round, I believe. It starts off with us being flooded with at least 6 Garcias, but we can knock them all over in a row with Adam's ridiculous jump kick. Killed them in record time. This is a really long level, but I think that's mostly due to the boss battle. But before you get your hopes up, I am absolutely horrible at this boss fight with Adam. That's not going to stop me from trying and showing you the best strategy I've personally come up with, though. Anyway, after that somewhat excitable start, things start to calm down a bit here. There's only one Hakuyu that comes up at us from behind after these 2 Garcias, and he's the only enemy on the screen for a while. Hakuyu's most important asset is being able to attack from a distance, so when you know he's coming, he's not really that threatening. There are versions of Hakuyu later which have a rapid fire kick, and that will absolutely destroy you. But we'll see them when we see them. We really want this Garcia's bat. And I really want to save this bat for an upcoming section with a ton of Noras, but I can't seem to successfully lure any of the upcoming Garcias into the screen. So I'm just going to use the screen clearing attack to clear them out. I would rather do this than risk losing our bat to all of them. I'm sure you can see why I would want to lure some of them out ahead of time, but that just wasn't happening. Thankfully now most of the enemies are going to come from the front and they won't magically surround us like that. And our bat's going to be particularly useful against all these Noras right here, because their whole thing is their range, and not only are we normally longer range than they are, but with our bat, it's just no contest. They never stood a chance. Now this level does have a version of Nora that will pretend to give up, she will pretend to surrender, but it's only so she can get back up and start hitting you again. Unfortunately, I don't know if we get to see it. I may have destroyed them all too quickly for that to actually trigger. But if that's the case, oh well, it wasn't that spectacular. This level is fairly generous with health if I'm recalling correctly. Now, if it's your first time playing the level, you'll probably die just before you reach the health because you didn't use your screen clearing move when you could have. Or you ran out of bat before you got to the place where you most needed the bat. But not only did we not lose any lives, but our health appears to be in pretty good shape. We're still going to take the meat, of course, because free health is free health. And we're going to lose plenty of lives to the boss battle. Maybe 2. Let's set our expectations at 2. That seems about right. Right up here I do get a bit trounced by a Hakuyu and Garcia coming from opposite sides of the screen, because I turned my attention to focus on one of them long enough for the other one to get me. And this whole issue could have been resolved if I used my jump kick more, but after this fight with this Hakuyu, I wisen up, and I start using that jump kick, excessively. Hey, if it works, it works. And you'll get to see the back attack for its intended function right there. The back attack may not seem all that great, but it does have a lot of hit frames. And there is a pipe right here to replace the bat we lost, but we're not going to be able to hold on to that for very long. Mostly because there is a surprise coming up after this Hakuyu, and I foolishly tried to use the pipe on the surprise, even though I knew it was coming. Yeah, that went about as well as you might have expected it to. But you remember this guy, we saw him just 2 levels ago, and he works exactly the same. This game has a habit of using old bosses as mini-bosses. A lot of people considered this to be padding the game length, and I'm not going to disagree. But they only take a couple of seconds to defeat, so you know, whatever. And everybody knows that immediately after the mini-boss comes the parade of Hakuyos. Now, the ideal way to take them out is to knock them all over like dominoes, like we did previously, but sometimes one of them jumps over your head. And that kind of ruins that plan. The jump kick is still the ideal way to take out these guys, though, by far. But there is a lot of them. Like a whole lot. They just sectioned off this entire part of the boat specifically for this enemy type. Right here we get a pickup for another screen clearing move, and we use it immediately because we got surrounded on all sides by a bunch of jacks. Now you might notice that these guys don't seem to actually be holding objects in spite of them throwing those objects, which means they were vulnerable to grapples. But it was still a better idea to use the screen clearing move. Now we're back to territory I'm more familiar with, I'm more comfortable with. Being swamped by Garcias, I'm all about that. 100% used to it. And I accidentally killed one of the Garcias way too far off the screen so I can't pick up his bat, which is unfortunate, but I believe I managed to make it to the boss without taking another hit of damage. That health is still going to drop real fast when we actually get to the boss, but making it there with a full 8 lives, that's an accomplishment in itself. It's much less of an accomplishment if you're playing as Adam, but the boss fight is certainly an accomplishment with Adam. I'm not talking much about the enemy formations here, but it's just a bunch of Garcias and yellow signals, or purple signals rather. Nothing that we didn't see. In fact, we saw plenty of these two in the previous level. Now we're faced with a Jack, and we don't have a long weapon to deal with them, so we're just going to use our jump kicks wherever they're applicable. And really, isn't our leg the longest weapon of all? Okay, it's time for the boss against Mona and Lisa. They do a whole bunch of flips and jump attacks. They each have a different jump attack, but both of them do the same thing, knock you on your ass and deal a ton of damage. And there is a way, thankfully, to knock them out of the air. You can either knock them out of the air with your jump kick, or more successfully with your back attack, because the back attack has more hit frames. It's actually very useful as a counter to their attacks, as you saw just there. The problem is that my butterfingers often will not let me press both buttons at the same time. So any error you see here is my fault for mistiming, or my fault for simply not pressing both buttons at once. Which leads to problems, as you can see. It is perfectly possible to employ this strategy without getting hit, and it works best for me right here in this corner, as you're seeing. Much easier than trying to take them on one-on-one, but it all depends on how well you time your attack, and whether your fingers are capable of pressing both buttons simultaneously. But hey, unless I majorly flub something up in the next 10 seconds, then I actually destroyed them with only 1 life instead of 2. Or rather, I only lost 1 life instead of 2. I do wish I could have done this strategy without dying so I could demonstrate its validity a little better, but I'm sure you can see for yourself, it's much easier than trying to fight them normally. By far. Just make sure you got that timing down.